Hi everyone, my name is Matt and welcome to another Hobby Hour tutorial. A couple weeks ago I shared a video about painting this green Saurus warrior using my contrast method. I've been really amazed with how well received that video is, and a couple folks left some comments requesting some different color schemes. I liked this Starborne color scheme on the Games Workshop website with all the different shades of blue and a cool glowing effect. I came up with an easy contrast method for painting it. And other than some long drying times, it's relatively fast to paint too. So how about we get started? I began the same way as the other Saurus warrior, with a coat of gray primer and then a dry brush of white. I'm using a cheap craft paintbrush, a soft number 10 round. When dry brushing, make sure to wipe nearly all the paint off the brush so there's barely any on it. Drag the brush across the surface of the model in a circular motion. The more directions you go, the smoother the overall effect will be. After dry brushing the model, I used a small detail brush and highlighted a few spots on the skin with thinned white paint, notably the chest, underside of the tail, and the knuckles. With the white finished, it's time for some contrast paint. Apothecary white is a great color for the chest, and it also provides a nice undercoat for the colors that will follow on the scales. Paint the Apothecary white all over the skin and the scales. After saturating the model with paint, make sure to go back and soak up any excess, then leave it to dry. Next I made a mix of 3 parts Apothecary white and 1 part Ultramarines blue. I painted this color everywhere except for the chest. I want to create a blended effect on the skin, and it's really easy to achieve. Paint a small section, rinse the brush, dry it on a paper towel, and then run the brush along the edge of the wet paint to blend it. Repeat this all the way around the chest area, and then paint a solid coat everywhere else. I wanted to deepen the blue color just a little bit more, so I used some Ultramarines blue on its own all over the model, and then I repeated the same blending process around the chest. Next, I lightly dry brushed the model with Russ Gray, avoiding the white belly. The Russ Gray is serving as a highlight for the blue portions of skin, as well as the scales on his back. Next, I painted all the scales with Black Templar. Black Templar is a very strong color, so try to avoid making any mistakes as they'll be pretty tough to correct. Blend the edges out just like we did with the Ultramarines blue. Paint a small section at a time, rinse the brush, dry it on a paper towel, and then soften the edge. After the Black Templar dried, the scales were looking a little flat, and I thought they could use a highlight. I went back to the Russ Gray and dry brushed the scales. I'm opting for a dry brush here rather than edge highlights, because I wanted to develop this color scheme for army painting, and edge highlighting takes a long time. However, if you feel like edge highlighting all the scales instead, I'd say go for it. I bet it would look really good. Now for the glowing effect. I got out a number 0 brush and painted some white in the eyes, mouth, and a few of the cracks on his shoulders, legs, and the back of his arm. Paint as much or as little as you like. With the white dry, I painted a coat of Aethermatic blue contrast paint. This is a very transparent color, and it won't show up on the black scales, so you won't have to be too precise with it. I applied a second coat of Aethermatic blue in the eye sockets and the mouth to deepen the color. Then I went back to pure white and added some highlights on the eyes, teeth, and a few dots in some of the cracks. Next I painted all the ropes and leather areas with Tuskgor fur. Followed by a shade with thinned Wildwood contrast paint. I thinned the Wildwood contrast paint with approximately 1 part water to 4 parts paint. I painted the weapon and the claws with black Templar. And when that was dry, I highlighted the edges of the weapon with Russ gray. I made a mix of about 5 parts Stormhost silver to 1 part Retributor armor. Retributor armor is a very strong color, and a little bit goes a long way. So I'd recommend starting with Stormhost silver on your palette and add just a tiny speck of gold, mix it up, and then add more if you need it. I used this mix to base coat all the remaining details. Next I shaded all the gold with Aethermatic blue. The shield will have 2 tones of gold on it, so I'm avoiding painting part of the design in the middle. I painted the gemstone on the shield with white. Then I used Magos purple and shaded the other gold area on the shield. I applied the first coat very thin, almost like a glaze. And then I applied a second coat, concentrating more of the paint near the bottom sections of the shield. I wanted to define the shapes a little bit more, so I painted some Magos purple in the cracks. Then I highlighted the gem with some thinned white paint. Finally, I gave the gold a very light dry brush with Stormhost silver, using an old beat-up brush. I applied some textured paint on the base, and then sprinkled some gravel and fine sand before allowing it to dry. Then I sealed in the sand with a coat of thinned Rhinox hide. I dry brushed the base with Mournfang brown, followed by a light dry brush with Tallarn sand. I picked out all of the rocks with Tallarn sand, and then I dry brushed them with Vallejo Bonewhite. I painted the edge of the base with Mournfang brown, and when that was dry, I applied some patches of dead static grass with super glue. And here's the finished Starborne Saurus warrior. This was a fun color scheme to work out, and I really enjoyed the process. Thank you to everyone who left some comments and suggestions on the last Saurus video. If you end up painting some of your Seraphon using this color scheme, please feel free to share. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy painting.